All right, things you should know this week. This is your weekly reminder to turn your bulletin over, look on the back, there's some good stuff there. Please silence your electronics, no phones ringing during the service. I will come answer them. That'd be fun. After the service today, we have, starting at noon, the Diary of Adam and Eve, and I am going to ask my wonderful worship associate to come up and tell you a little bit about it.
Okay, folks, third time's a charm. So, for the last 2 weeks, I've been telling you a little bit about the Diary of Adam and Eve. This is a staged reading being done by the Mark Twain Players. It was originally done by the Theater Odyssey group in Oslo, at the Oslo Theater, so you know the quality we're talking about. This is your chance to see Mark Twain's take on the biblical story, and I assure you, you won't be disappointed. You will laugh, you will think, you will wonder, and most of all, you will enjoy. So please, please come. It's a free event. $10 free will donation if you want to, but come anyway. Thanks.
And just a reminder real quick that Community Outreach is running a lanai collection today and next Sunday for Spark. Spark runs a state-certified center that provides essential services for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. So if you have questions, please see Janet Knudsen. But there's Janet waving her arms over there. But we are running the collection this week and next week. Please give, and don't give it to Richard Palmer, who's also waving his arms. And with that, I will turn over the pulpit.
In Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Alice asked the Cheshire Cat where she should go from here. And he tells her, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to. When she assures him that she doesn't care much, he says, then it doesn't matter which way you go. We light our chalice today in honor of goodness of direction, which can go in unexpected ways. Good morning. And welcome to this wonderful place, which we call UCOV. We are the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Venice, and we're glad you're here. Welcome to this gathering of seekers, question askers, and story lovers. Whether you are here for the first time or the 1,000th, whether you arrived in certainty or confusion or simple curiosity, you belong in this circle today. This morning we turn our attention to Carl Jung and also to Terry Pratchett, who on the surface should have been merely England's most popular writer of clever fantasy novels. Terry Pratchett himself used to joke that he was just a scribbler. Pratchett was funny, hilariously funny, but he was also precise and perceptive in a way that reveals something deep about the human soul. He wrote satire the way a surgeon makes the first careful incision, with steady hands, with respect for the life inside the body, and with an unflinching desire to remove whatever was making us unwell. His books look whimsical, but underneath the jokes and the broomsticks is a fierce, moral imagination that understood people as whole beings, messy, contradictory, capable of extraordinary grace and extraordinary harm. And nowhere is that clearer than in the Witches of Discworld, especially Granny Weatherwax. By all rights, she should have been a stock character pulled straight from the old fairy tale cabinet. A craggy face, a pointy hat, a cauldron, and a handful of magical sayings. And Pratchett gives us some of that because he enjoys the joke. But then he turns the joke inside out. He gives us a witch who understands Jung better than Jung does. A woman who knows her own shadow and refuses to pretend it isn't there. A woman who does not claim purity or saintliness, but instead, through grit and choice, walks the path of goodness with eyes open to everything bad she could become. Pratchett once said that, quote, evil begins when you begin to treat people as things, unquote. And so he wrote characters, especially the witches, who never forget that people are people, complex, contradictory, beautiful, frustrating, capable of so much more than we often dare believe, each one wrestling with their own shadows. So today, as we gather, we honor the layers beneath the laughter and talk a bit about the Jungian idea of the shadow filtered through modern literature. Welcome to worship. May the stories we share today open us a little more to our own depth, our own shadow, and our own capacity to choose goodness again and again, even if it takes us in unexpected directions. Our first reading is from Embracing the Shadow by Carl Jung. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Oops, I took the wrong direction.
We usually end the service singing May Love Surround You, and I was thinking about that today. Good morning, and may love truly surround you as you enter here today and every day. I am so glad to see all of you here this morning. Welcome to this slightly strange service where popular fiction leads to psychoanalysis and the Wicked Witch is really the good guy. We're here to talk about our faceted personalities and the choice to engage in the good. We're here to live faithfully rather than to enforce a faith or a creed. And this morning, we're going to be walking alongside some of Terry Pratchett's characters, who became some of the more honest spiritual teachers in contemporary literature. And Pratchett had a way of slipping in deep truths as the side of a joke. And today we're going to follow that thread right to the center of our own hearts. We'll look at what it means to know ourselves, not just the pleasant, respectable parts, but all the pieces. The anger, the fear, the pride, the hunger, the shadow that Jung talked about. Not to wallow in it, not to glorify it or be ashamed of it, but to own it so that it cannot own us. Because the path toward goodness, real goodness, the kind that survives storms and hard choices, that path is not paved with denial. It's not paved with the blinding brightness of self-righteousness. It's paved with honesty, with courage, and with the willingness to face our whole selves and say, I know who you are, and you don't scare me. That's the journey we're on today, learning to step away from false purity and how to step into the deeper truth of our complexity and how to choose again and again a direction rooted in compassion and integrity and love. There's no one way to get there. It's different for all of us. What matters is that goodness of direction. So let us begin as whole people, as people brave enough to look at our own shadows, as people committed to choosing the good, even if it means stepping into the darkness. Come and let us worship here together. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We're going to sing it through twice. There's no point in doing a service about going in weird directions without doing some things that are a little weird. So welcome to the sermon. Terry Pratchett was a kind, generous, and very funny man. I used to belong to one of his fan clubs when he was still on the planet. A lot of my friends did too, and I'll tell you how I know how kind this man is. A friend of mine lost a husband to suicide. She was horrifically upset. We were worried about her. We were really worried. And in desperation, I threw a Hail Mary pass. I wrote to Terry Pratchett's publicist. And I told him what was going on. I said, this person adores Terry. She adores his books. It's the only thing keeping her going. Can he help? Maybe he could write her a little note. Maybe write her a little email. I mean, that's all I was asking. And about 3 hours later, I got a phone call from Terry Pratchett, who at that time had just been made a Knight of the British Empire and was the most popular writer in England. And with no preamble, he said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your friend. I know who she is. Her name has popped up on the fan listings and the conventions. What can I do? And I said, well, I thought maybe a small card, just something, one line. And he said, well, I'm finishing a book called Thud, and no one has seen it yet, and I wondered if she might like to be my advance reader and maybe give me some ideas of what I've done wrong. And I said, sir, I think she will have a heart attack. And he said, well, good, that's done then, we'll try it. And so I gave him her address. And within a few days, he had mailed what at that time would have been worth millions if someone had gotten their hands on it and sold it. He mailed her the first draft of the book Thud and said, you are one of my greatest fans, and I really need a little help on this one. Would you please go through this book and see if I've messed up anything? Just let me know if there's anything I didn't get right. And so for the next year, she read advance copies for him. And she made notes, and she called him, and he called her back. And she kept going to therapy. And she kept finding more and more reasons to be with us. And by the time Thud came out, she had become someone who was now working for a fan convention. And she was considering the possibility of being excited about life again. And she had tickets to go to London in the following year to go to the British Convention and meet Sir Terry in person. And he did all this for someone he didn't know, because someone else he didn't know had written his publicist and said, sir, please help. That's how I know this man is a good man. And when he writes, nothing he writes is a throwaway. There are layers upon layers, even for those of us who are fanatics about his books. 15 years later, you'll still find something and go, oh my God, how did I miss it? A buddy of mine just discovered last year, he asked a group of us, he said, I cannot figure out why he named the island in one book, this little tiny island. He said, why did he name it Leshp? L-E-S-H-P. He said, I can't figure it out. It doesn't mean anything. There's no joke. It's just a bad sounding. And somebody else in the group, said, you ever asked yourself what people who come from Leshp would be called? And every lesbian in the group was giggling hysterically because they had figured out the joke 5 years earlier. But when he writes his witches characters, at least one of them has the best descriptions of ministry that I've ever seen in my life. And there's a moment in his novel Carpe Jugulum, which, yes, it translates as seize the throat, a moment that is so stark and so honest, it feels less like fantasy and more like a religion borrowed from some ancient holy work. And it's a minute where Granny Esmeralda Weatherwax comes to a crossroads within herself, and she is facing down a clan of vampires, typical Drek, whose existence threatens her people and her world. But the confrontation that matters is not the one between her and them, it's between her and herself, and Jung would be proud. She stands there, and she has entered into this slightly alternate dimension of life, and there's an overwhelming brilliance in front of her. It's warm, it's welcoming. You've all heard, step into the light. In that moment, she believes she is dying. She has been injured. And this wonderful, brilliant light opens up ahead of her. A kind of false purity, a place where certainty demands nothing of her, because everything is already bright and clear. All the answers are told to you. She also stands with a darkness behind her, so dense that it seems to swallow the air. And in that moment, she had to choose, do I step into the light where everything is already revealed? And Pratchett writes, Granny turned to face the sheer white brilliance and closed her eyes and stepped backwards. She stepped away from the light. She stepped into the darkness. And she says, I know who you are now, Esmeralda Weatherwax, talking to herself, and you don't scare me anymore. And this is a sermon about that moment in all our lives. It's a sermon about the courage to know yourself, your whole self, including the pieces you'd rather ignore in order to remain on the path of goodness. Because goodness without self-knowledge is brittle. It's worth nothing. And holiness without honesty is dangerous. I asked a friend one time, I said, it's relative. If I am standing alone on a desert island, the fact that I haven't stolen anything lately becomes utterly moot. And if no one has upset me in months, the fact that I haven't become angry, who cares? Every one of us has what Jung would call a shadow. All of the pieces of us that are not in our normal forward-facing presentation, all of the pieces we don't want to deal with, our jealousy, our anger, our rage, that's all there. But goodness without self-knowledge is brittle, and holiness without honesty is dangerous. And anyone who wants to build a life of integrity must, as Carl Jung wrote, make the darkness conscious. But Granny, in her plain-spoken witch practicality, says it better. A witch ought never to be frightened in the darkest forest, because she ought to be sure in her soul that the most terrifying thing in the forest was her. Not because she's wicked, but because she knows exactly what she carries inside and she refuses to let it own her. On its surface, that brilliant white light, that light that she rejects, it's everything we've been taught to admire: purity, clarity, certainty, righteousness. But this isn't the warmth of the sun. This isn't the flame of the chalice that gathers us into community. Pratchett describes it as overwhelming, a blaze so total it leaves no room for complexity, no space for questions, no shadows of nuance. I don't know about you all, but most UUs would wither and die in that kind of brilliance if we couldn't ask, yes, but what about? It's the light of unexamined virtue, the light of I'm right so I don't need to look deeper, the light of moral smugness. It's the most comfortable and corrosive light any of us have ever seen. And we have seen this. We've seen this when people are certain they know what motivates someone's choices. We've seen this when people cling to a preferred story long after it's stopped being true. Heck, we've seen it when we insist, I could never have made a mistake. I just know that. I'm guilty. I'm as guilty as anyone. The problem with this light is it demands nothing. It asks nothing. It never challenges us. It's the light you see when someone else tells you you don't have to think. Jim Jones, Heaven's Gate. Every religion that says, here are the only answers, now just do what we told you. They got that light. Every relationship that says, stop thinking, just do what I said. Same light. And if we step into that kind of purity, that kind of know-it-allness, we can't grow. We can only become more convinced of our own goodness. And self-righteousness, left unchecked, becomes a cage and sometimes a weapon. That's the danger of believing that goodness is something we possess, something we own and can put up on a shelf like a trophy. There it is, I have goodness. It's something we have to keep choosing over and over in the messy little laboratories of our heart. What do you do when nobody's looking and nobody is keeping score? That's your shadow. That's you. Which one wins? Granny Weatherwax understood this. She understood that the brighter that false light burned, the easier it would be to lose herself in it, to become passive, unthinking, complacent in the assumption of her own virtue. So she steps away, backward into the darkness. And you know, darkness is never given a fair shot in spiritual language. We are too accustomed to shorthand. Light is good, dark is bad, light is holy, dark is dangerous. People have even extended that to humans with dark skin or dark hair. Even black animals are the last to be adopted. We have internalized this idea. But our lived experience is more complex. We know better. There are forms of darkness that destroy. Despair and cruelty and hatred, apathy, these are real. We know them. Many of us have learned their contours in the depths of our own life. But there is another set of darknesses, nurturing darknesses. The darkness of the womb, the darkness of rest in a dimmed room, the darkness when seeds split open and roots start their stubborn journey down. There is a darkness where truth lives, the truths we haven't admitted, the truths we haven't heard, and that is the darkness that Granny enters. Not to be swallowed by it, but to meet what is there. But because what she fears isn't the evil out there. What she fears is her own anger, her power, her capacity to harm, her pride, her will, and she knows it. She knows she cannot be good unless she is honest about all the things she could be, including the bad. When I read this the first time, I thought, oh my God, he has just explained Jung better than Jung did. This is the heart of Jung's idea. Carl Jung was a therapist. This is the heart of his idea about what your shadow is. The parts of ourselves that we don't acknowledge in our public face. The parts that we refuse to acknowledge do not go away. If you spent an hour thinking, man, I want to steal that car. I want that car. And you pretend like you've never had a thieving thought in your life, you're ignoring your shadow. We have to deal with who we really are, because if we don't, those ideas continue operating behind us somewhere without our permission. And I'll tell you, in my late teens and early 20s, I was a tough kid. I lived in a tough area, and I knew tough people. And I made sure everyone knew that I could handle anything that the world threw at me. I was mean and brave, and I didn't need pity or compassion, but if you could have seen my shadow, the shadow I was so angry about, you would have seen that what I really wanted wasn't the fight that I picked or the new tattoo I got. What I really wanted was to be somewhere safe in warm jammies. And I wanted to own a real dollhouse with little bits and real lights. And I was mad as bejeebers about this. I was mad that I wanted that so bad. If I had admitted it at 20, I would have called myself weak. Now I build dollhouses for fun. Because I made friends with my shadow a long time ago. We all carry a shadow. It's not whether you exist with one, it's whether you're willing to know it. Granny looks in the darkness and says, I know who you are now and you don't scare me anymore. She's talking to herself. This is not triumph. This is honesty. It's acceptance. It's the beginning of integrity. It's what every person working a 12-step program has to do. It's what every one of us who has something in our heart that we don't want. It could be addiction. It could be anger. Doesn't matter. This is the beginning of integrity. Knowing yourself is a moral act. It doesn't make you a bad person if you recognize sometimes I want to do bad things. That does not make you bad. The fact that you didn't do them makes you good. But you got to recognize and not ignore the fact that, yeah, I really wanted to steal that car. I really wanted to pop my brother in the head when he acted like a dork at the last family gathering. I really did. But then you can work on the fact, why am I so angry? What about that car makes me feel inferior, that I feel I need it? Self-knowledge is a moral act. If we don't understand our own capacity to do bad, we will harm others blindly. If we don't recognize where we're prejudiced, they'll shape our behavior. If we don't acknowledge our anger, it will leak into the spaces between us. If we don't understand our hunger for approval or control or certainty, these things will drive our decision-making without us knowing. Goodness is not a default setting, it's a direction. And we can't keep that direction if we don't know what winds push us, what storms gather, what shadows trail. Granny is not good because she lacks the ability to do wrong. She's written as the wicked witch who does good every day of her life because she knows exactly how dangerous she would be and chooses again and again and again not to be. She's a bad person doing lots and lots of good stuff. And it all works out the same because she's still heading in that goodness of direction. Her goodness is an act of will, not an act of innocence. It's rooted in self-awareness, not self-delusion. This is why she can walk into that forest unafraid, not because nothing there can harm her, but because she has resolved she won't hurt others. Imagine if we were willing to live like that. Imagine if we taught our children and grandchildren not that they are pure, but that they are powerful and responsible for the choices they make with that power. And yes, that they are going to make mistakes and the world doesn't end with a mistake. What if we approached our own souls not with fear or avoidance, but with that same clear-eyed honesty? What would our relationships look like? What about our communities and our democracy and our world? But if goodness isn't something we have up on the shelf, if it is a direction, then you got to navigate. We have to look out toward compassion and justice and courage and kindness. Those things have to be the North Stars that guide us. And we have to look inward toward the impulses that sabotage us and the fears that distort us and the pride that blinds us. A compass only works if two things happen. One, it knows where north is, and two, the needle can move. A person only acts with integrity if their values are clear and their inner landscape is uncluttered by denial. Goodness of direction comes from knowing your full self so thoroughly that you can't be controlled by the parts you don't want to see. If I know I cannot turn down junk food, I know that. I know I'm going to eat it if you put it out. If I refuse to believe that, then anybody who hands me a candy bar can lead me around by the nose or by the Snickers bar. But if I acknowledge, hey, I'm not good with junk. I'm not good with junk, therefore I'm not going to eat sugar. I'm not lying. I know I have a problem, so I don't take sugary sweets. You recognize the shadow, you deal with the problem. Goodness of direction means saying, I know my anger, so I will choose where to put it, and I know my fear, so I won't let it tell me what to do. I know my longings. I won't confuse that with the truth. I know my shadow, and I can walk in the world with less harm and more purpose. This is grown-up spirituality. This is mature faith, the brave work that lets us build real relationships, real justice. And now we return to that wonderful line, a witch ought never to be frightened in the darkest forest, because she should be sure in her soul that the most terrifying thing in the forest was her. This is not a call to menace. It's a call to responsibility. Know what you are capable of. Respect the weight of your own power. Master it, hold it, direct it toward what is right. You are dangerous when you are unconscious. You are trustworthy when you are awake, so get woke. Be the one who walks into the forest with clarity and humility and a fierce, grounded love. Because the person who knows themselves, their light and their shadows, is a person who cannot be manipulated by fear, who will stand between the vulnerable and harm, who will not look away from injustice, not because they're perfect, but because they understand. A person who knows themselves will not surrender their soul to the easy temptations of self-righteousness. In the Christian Bible, they refer to it as temptation. Granny Weatherwax steps from the false, overpowering light, and she steps into the dark, and she finds herself. Not the sanitized, ideal version, but the whole version. And says, okay, I can deal with this. May we find that courage, that honesty. May we confront our shadows not as enemies, but as teachers. Their work, this work of knowing ourselves, is never finished. There's no moment we get to say, oh, I've mastered my shadow, on to the next thing. Doesn't work like that. There's no ceremony when we graduate from the school of human complexity, but each day we choose the path of integrity. Each day we refuse the seduction of self-righteousness and delve into deeper truth. And in doing so, we do not merely become good, we become capable of goodness, capable of courage, capable of love. This is the spiritual life, not perfection, not purity, but an ever-deepening knowledge of the self, an ever-strengthening commitment to compassion, and an ever-renewing choice to walk toward the good. Amen. This is the time in our service where we're doing our offering, and we always do the offering with a joke to make the pain hurt a little less. a UU minister walks into a pet store to buy a parrot, and the guy behind the counter said, well, I have one, but he's a real jerk. The minister said, that's okay, I can handle a jerk. I want the parrot anyhow. And she gets the bird home, and she puts it in her kitchen, and she takes off the cover. The bird looks around and sees a chalice sticker on the fridge. Oh, Lord, it says, you're one of those nutty Unitarians. Hope you people all get tossed out of here. The minister ponders for a minute. Then she takes the bird and she puts him in the freezer. She said, I'll let him sit for just a minute. And in 1 minute, she gets him back out. She said, did that cool you off? The bird says, I'm just getting started, lady. Miffed, she picks him up and she tosses him back in the freezer. This time she waits 5 minutes. Now, while the parrot's in the freezer, he becomes real sure that this was the wrong thing to say. He makes a mental note, I'm not going to say that stuff again, and remorse gives way to desperation, and he begins to look around the freezer. And finally, the minister opens the freezer door and takes out the near-frozen parrot and says, have you learned a lesson? The parrot says, oh yeah, I have, absolutely. But I have one question. The minister says, what? He says, my God, what did that turkey in there say? The morning offering will now be given and gratefully received. Thank you so much for these gifts and for everything you do for the life and the work of this community. Because it's as a community of human hands and human hearts that we come here together to struggle with life's sorrows and to celebrate life's joys. So if you have something to share, please raise a hand, and I believe it's Tony and Marcia today. One of them will bring you a microphone. If you're new here, please feel free to raise a hand and introduce yourself.
My name is Mary Crows, and I am new here. I've come with my friends, Belva and Tony McNair. It's a pleasure to meet you all and be a part of this service today. I'm Sally Erb, and I had dinner last night with Roxy Platt, and she asked me to speak for her. She said she is overwhelmed with thankfulness for everything this congregation is doing for her, and she welcomes phone calls and visits. She will be going back into the hospital this week to receive chemotherapy treatments. She's really wanting to be able to write everybody an individual thank you note, but her eyes won't allow her to do that. But she wants you to know that you are all dear to her heart.
Hi, I'm Pam Palmer. I have two things to say. This is Robin, Richard's aide. She's and good. She's become a good friend. She does wonderful things for Richard, and she's helped him so that he can get here today. I also want to invite everyone, and I mean everyone, Christmas Eve, we live at Village on the Isle, and we do a little gathering. We've done it every year. Every year I say, oh, it's going to be the last year. But I wanted to hand out some paper invitations, but our printer kind of died yesterday. So hopefully maybe next week I'll have some printed things. I'll have some instructions. Everyone is welcome. Oh, it's Christmas Eve, 6 o'clock.
Hi, my name is Peggy Drogash, and I'm back. I feel so good to be back, and I resolved my situation. I guess, like fish, after 3 months, people stink, and my daughter decided I didn't need to come to live with her. So it's good to be back. Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Eileen Leapley. I have a brief update on Dave Lyon. Some of you may know this, but he was quite sick several weeks ago, was in intensive care. Happy to say that he is now home with Shar, and their daughter Lisa was with them, and that was a godsend. He is doing better. He is having his 28 staples removed on Tuesday, and he has been only wanting emails and probably texts rather than phone calls, but I think he's feeling better now. So if you do email him, ask him if he minds if you call him, because we love Dave and Shar, and we want him to be 100% recovered.
Mark, I see you sitting back in the corner. You're back from north?
I was back a while back, so I'm good.
Okay. Welcome delayed.
Hi, I'm Jean B., and guess what day it is? It's birthday Sunday. Can everybody see this? We have quite a few this week, and some of them are here in the congregation. That's exciting. Paul Miller, yes. Janet Knudsen.
Last names?
Janet, sorry. We're not using last names. Carol. Cindy, Drew, Dennis, Janet, Paul, Lori, Larry, Tom, and Nancy. We've got quite a few. If I've missed anyone missed for December, this will be out front right by our refreshment table. We have a birthday cake and cookies and some things to drink. So we hope you'll stop by there. You have plenty of time before the play starts. So let's have a little bit of a happy birthday for everybody. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear everyone. Happy birthday to you. Thank you.
May the love of this community hold all who need love and concern, and may the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May those who are grieving be comforted, and those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed, and may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant.
Our first reading is from Embracing the Shadow, Carl Jung, by Tobias Weaver. Jung explained that the shadow is a cognitive blind spot of our psyche, an undercurrent of who we are that we're completely unaware of. It's an element of our own nature that exists in our unconscious and is made from our repressed desire, ideas, instincts, weaknesses, and shortcomings. It's the gap between the ego and the id. More specifically, the shadow is caused by the resistance that comes from the differences in the life our ego consciously has us live to fit into the world around us and the behavior our id draws us towards. Jung described the shadow as the thing a person has no wish to be. An easy way to check the nature of our shadow is to look at others and find out the qualities you like the least. These are often qualities you dislike in yourself and push down or avoid. This is called projection and can lead us to have a warped perception of the people around us. While we may not like what we see, when we begin to look at our shadow, its exploration is important for personal development. Jung wrote, "The meeting with oneself is, at first, the meeting with one's own shadow. The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door, whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well. But one must learn to know oneself in order to know who one is." What is the risk of the shadow self? When we feel the pull of our id, and that pull is in conflict with our ego and the person we want to be, this friction is where the shadow presents itself. The risk of the shadow is that it projects itself unconsciously, meaning that it can seep into our thoughts and our actions without our knowing. We may get defensive. We may protest too much about something we actually desire internally. We might lash out at people. Or we may use our ego to generate stories that validate the needs of the id, and by extension, the shadow. In the Archetypes in the Collective Unconscious, Jung wrote, "A man who is possessed by his shadow is always standing in his own light and falling into his own traps, living below his own level. However the shadow presents itself, there is a good chance it will be destructive to a greater or lesser extent and have an impact on our lives and our well-being." Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing number 108, "My Life Flows On in Endless Song," verses 1 and 3.
Creation.
Our meditation today is from Shadow Meditation, Befriend Your Darkness, by Dr. Regina Hewson Beck. Shadows always appear behind a great light. You simply cannot have the light without the darkness, the good without the bad, the night without the dark. It is the nature of our very creation, the polarity of opposites. And two, shadows often appear when we are afraid. Specifically, when we fear we won't get something we think we need, or we'll lose something we already have. Perhaps a good relationship, a good enough job, finances, approval, health, status, which we believe we need. The shadow awakens. With these words in mind, please join me in 1 minute of silent thought, meditation, or prayer. The second reading is from Granny Weatherwax's speech to Pastor Oates by Terry Pratchett. Carpe jugulum, did I say that right? Jugulum, okay. Depends on how you say your Latin. She turned to face him, suddenly alive. "It'd be as well for you if I didn't believe," she said, prodding him with her sharp finger. This God, anyone seen him? It is said 3,000 people witnessed his manifestation at the great temple when he made the covenant with the prophet Brutha and saved him from death by torture on the iron turtle. But I bet that now they're arguing about what they actually saw, eh? Well, indeed, yes, there are many opinions. Right. That's people for you. Now, if I'd seen him really there, really alive, it'd be in me like a fever. If I thought there was some God who really did care two hoots about people, who watched him like a father and cared for him like a mother, well, you wouldn't catch me saying things like, there are two sides to every question, and we must respect other people's belief. You wouldn't find me just being generally nice in the hope that it'd all turn out right. In the end, not if that flame was burning in me like an unforgiven sword. And I did say burning, Mr. Oates, 'cause that's what it'd be like. You say that you people don't burn folk and sacrifice people anymore. That's what true faith would mean, you see. Sacrificing your own life one day at a time to the flame, declaring the truth of it, working for it, breathing in the soul for it. That's religion. Anything else is just being nice and a way of keeping in touch with the neighbors. She relaxed slightly and went on in a quieter voice. Anyway, that's what I'd be if I really believed. And I don't think that's fashionable right now, because it seems that if you seize evil now, you have to wring your hands and say, oh, dearie me, we must debate this. That's my 2 pen worth, Mr. Oates. You be happy to let things lie. Don't chase faith, 'cause you'll never catch it. She added almost as an aside, but perhaps you can live faithfully.
We extinguish this light, but we carry the flaming call to live faithfully out into the world. May we always choose goodness of direction. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our final hymn this week, When the Spirit Says Do. And we're going to do, second verse is laugh, third verse is sing. Do, laugh, sing. All right, hit it. May we walk with courage and humility and with the fierce, honest wisdom of Granny Weatherwax, who teaches us we can be both light and dark, but that our power is to not deny either and to choose who we will be. So walk faithfully. Peace, ashe, and may it be so.
From